How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the Dymak channel. If you're new to me, thank you very much for clicking on this video. I'm Chris Bilton. I was a professional jeweller in the UK for over 20 years, but now I'm living in Japan and using my skills, putting them to good use by making jewellery making instructional videos now and putting them on YouTube. I got patrons to the channel, and from recently I now say thank you to them at the start of the video. I used to do it at the end, and I worry people just skip and don't hear their names. I want you to hear their names because these people are putting money down to really support the channel, so I really appreciate them doing that. So we've got Dimitri Tuzov, Johnny, Gladys Cardenas, Corey Carmine, we've got Jamie Erhart, and a new one this morning, Alex Kisiel. Thank you very much, guys. Really appreciate you becoming patrons and yeah, supporting me, help you, helping everyone. So yeah, it's great that you would be so generous as to put some money down. Yeah, cool. Right, so let's get started. This is a 8-claw Rex Collet. Regular viewers to the channel will recognise it. It's already been in a video. Did an instructional guide to make one. I'll put a card on the screen so you can go straight to that video if you want to see it. But they don't go in a ring like that. They need a little underbezel. So now we're going to make an underbezel and solder it on. Okay, so I'm always shocked when I pick up something I made in a previous video and then look at it closely. I'm always shocked at how bad it is. It really knocks my skill level down a lot. Like having to talk about what I'm doing, working with the camera and thinking about camera angles and stuff. I mean, like, just so you know, when I'm like judging something and how well it's made, like looking at that wall should be a nice sort of parallel flat going there. So the height of all these needs to be the same, all the angles need to be all symmetrical. That gap needs to come down the same. That should be, the walls of that should be nice and straight going up to the top. Everything's a bit rough. Although, to be fair to myself, I don't spend as much time finishing things off as nicely. I just sort of get them made enough for completing a video, and then the video is done. I'm not actually really finishing it to sell or nothing, but yeah, I'm better than this normally. You just have to take my word for that. So anyway, first of all, before you go about soldering on a bezel, the thing needs to sit down flat. Let's see if I can do this. Camera's going to start kicking off with the focus now, told you. So each one of those points at the bottom need to be touching. This one, I think I said in the video, sort of remember saying it, if you get them really dead sharp, there's a chance you sort of take more metal off one than the other one, and then you end up with like one sitting up a little bit. And if you try and solder it in like that, you end up having to sort of put more solder in than another one. And there's a chance that solder runs up inside that V and it just all looks a mess. And all these things have happened to me in the past, that's why I know. So from that experience, I don't over sharpen them. I leave them just a bit of a flat on the bottom of them, on all of them. And that way I know I'm not overdoing it or taking too much metal away. There's something I had in a book years ago. I can't think where it was. It must have been an old martial arts book. I did martial arts for years when I was younger, in my 20s. It said something about don't try and be as good as your teacher. You try to be as good as your teacher's trying to be, or something like that. You sort of aim in higher than what because your teacher's still trying to improve as well. So you're looking at where your teacher's looking, or even higher than that. You'll learn quicker, you'll escalate faster, and obviously you'll become more skillful than if you're just trying to be as good as someone who's teaching you. Keep that in mind. So I've got a bit of metal I'm going to be using for that. I'm just going to draw a circle on it, cut that circle out rather than trying to turn up a bit of wire ring. I don't think anyone does that. If they do, fine, but I've never done it that way. You might have a question of how thick do you want it? You want it a little bit thick because that's the metal that's going against the finger, yeah? So inside a ring, you're going to be filing up underneath it. So you need a little bit of thickness, but you haven't got to go mad. So a little bit thick, obviously enough to go all the way around it. I would recommend choosing a diameter a little bit wider than that. Again, be careful. If you go too wide, it looks terrible. If you go too narrow or level with that, it just looks like a cheap sort of stamped out one you buy from a jewellery parts catalogue. So I like to have a little bit of a step outwards, but it's a tiny amount. People with experience doing repairs will know about this sort of job. Sometimes it's nice if you can get a repair job and, like, say, just the top of the claws are worn out, so just the collet needs repairing and the underbezel's all right. The underbezel can wear out when people put two rings together. Like, you get a big flat section, which is quite common, but sometimes it gets really bad and starts the sides of the ring start wearing each other out, so you end up having to replace the underbezel and the collet. But sometimes it's not unusual really, where just the claws are worn out, so you're just repairing this, which I prefer, because you've basically you just cut this out of a ring, so you've got a complete ring with the underbezel there and just shoulders sticking up, and then you're just replacing that. And I think customers like that as well, because they tend to not like it, not always, but some customers are a bit shocked their ring looks very different, because it's been so many years since they've seen it in new condition. They've been wearing like a worn out like ring for 20 odd years, so when they see it and everything's all new and sharp and sort of strong looking, they almost feel like they've got a different ring on. So yeah, it's nice if you can just replace the minimum for them. It's cheaper for a customer as well, but you've got to do what you've got to do. If the underbezel needs going, just be honest with them, tell them, and charge them accordingly, and do a good job when you repair it, and then you've got a customer for life maybe. So I am choosing, just want that little step over the edge, so about 485, 4. I'm going to cut out 4.9, and then I think with a little bit of tapping and papering around it and stuff, it should be alright. But I just want a little step around the outside. So using dividers, yeah, this is sketching out. You set this to the radius, and then you turn it around to get your diameter. So 4.9, half of that, 2.45. I mean, I'm setting this to like accurate to hundredths of a mil, and then just by eye lining up my points of my dividers to it. So it's not going to be it's at least it's going to be close. But then there's drawing it, and then there's cutting it out, and there's like how you're losing accuracy the whole time. Okay, let me know if you've got a better way of doing that. So let's push a little dot in the middle with an old dart. Scratch out your circle. So before you start cutting, there's a risk of you wasting time if you don't like the size of it, so I always put it on there and have a look. Mine looks a bit big, but I think if I cut around the inside of that line rather than the outside, it'll be alright. And then we'll get it perfectly round by tapping it in something like that. Just get the edge, just boing boing, just get the edge nice. So then just cut it out. What I do is before I start tapping it perfectly round, I will just have a look at it, because there's a chance, especially when they're small, it's hard to cut them out a nice round shape, so don't worry about it too much, as long as you've got it big enough. I just quickly look at it and I sort of take off any little lumpy bits, just to get it a bit more round, gives you a head start. As usual, this happens to me a lot, whatever I want to tap down isn't quite right, like I can't hit that down any lower, and it's too big for that one. This happens a lot, and this is my complaint about a lot of jewellery making tools. Look at all this flat space. Why isn't there another one there? Should be another one there, another one there, another one there, all different sizes, big one, small one. There's just loads of space there. Considering how gently we tap bits of metal in there, why isn't that just covered in these cone-shaped holes? I've got loads of ideas like that for like simple things for making jewellery, and I think of like all the decades, like all these master jewellers that have come and gone. Like, why haven't these tools already been invented? Like, I find it confusing. Anyway, right, so if you got one of those, doesn't fit, these blocks are quite good for just tapping things round. So yeah, I think that's the right one. Yeah, there you go. So it just sticks up a little bit down in there. Did you notice how hard I hit that? Like hardly anything at all. I'll show you what it did to it. See, that sort of crinkled the edge a little bit, but I've got this perfect circle now, which is important for when I put it on that. When I put that on it, it's gonna look nice. Okay, so is that showing up? There's a bit of a step over the sides. It's not quite lined up nicely, but okay, so is that showing up? There's a bit of a steplet over the sides. That's what I like. That kind of thickness to that sort of height. Collet. Like, don't watch my videos and then think the way I'm doing it is the way it has to be done. You can do what you want. Like, express your creativity. Like, you can have it. I said I don't like them flush with the sides, but you can totally do that if you want to do that. You can have a big step. You can have a step that comes under more than the sides of the collet, or flat, or whatever you want. Like, it's up to you. Like, be creative, be artistic. Or it might be beneficial to you if I say you have to make it exactly the way I've made it, because by doing that you're practicing getting shapes and things put together in a specific way, and that actually empowers you to make it how you want to make it in the future. Does that make sense? So not just like, do what you want, doesn't matter. That's probably bad advice. It should be like, get it like this, because this is probably, if I think about it, this is how I've learned to make jewellery, by getting things exactly how people have asked me to get it. And then now by doing that, and now I have the ability to do what I want to do, and like I've got this power to shape metal exactly how I want it to be done. So up to you. Maybe just saying be artistic, be creative might give you a mindset of like being a bit slapdash and just forgiving yourself when you're making mistakes. It's probably a bad thing to do. Yeah, make it exactly the way I've done it. Don't do anything different than the way I've done it, okay? So you've got your collet and a little round disc of metal, separate pieces. Now I would, making that gold and platinum and stuff, actually finishing something well, I'd polish that. I'd be holding it, getting my paper whizzer, go around the outside, getting that angle, perfect angle all the way around it, going to my finest grade buff sticks, getting the top nice and buffed, and then I'd polish the top of that. Polishing, I would use the disc mop on the big polisher motor, get the disc spinning on there, just get it on my fingertip and just go bonk and just hold it on the side. Yes, it gets hot. Yes, it's a bit dangerous. Yes, dangerous hobby, dangerous job. Just be careful. That's why children don't do it. It's an adults only kind of occupation. Yeah, so I'm going to do that now. Literally just going to grab my cylinder whizzers, card on the screen, how to make these. You can buy them, but they're kind of fun to make. So yeah, I'm just going to go around the outside and just tidy this up a little bit. I won't go as far as polishing it, but I'll get it nicely papered up, and then we'll solder it together. It's cool to hold it in parallel pliers, and then you can literally look at it sideways on, so you can get this angle the same all the way around it. You don't want to be making the top narrower or anything, or making it go wobbly and weird. You want to keep it nice and round. So I just rotate it a little bit, paper it. Now you may, or you may not have, realised that an underbezel usually has a hole in it. It's usually just a ring of metal sitting under there. But just through experience, especially doing repairs, it's so easy to drill a hole through that when it's in the ring. So I just leave it till last. So it just saves you doing a hole too big and it looks thin and then you regret it or whatever. I just leave it until the last thing to get that on there. So just going through the job, I mean, I haven't done this for years, but doing repairs, it's nice if you've got the job for doing the collet and the underbezel together, and then they're going in a customer's ring. It's nice if you can solder that in with medium, and then, or hard if you want to risk it, and then put it in the ring with easy, because a customer's ring, if an old, you know what previous repairs it's had, shoulders might be on there with like easy solder, and then you start trying to solder it in with medium and stuff. It's yeah, it's a bit of a liability. Like, things can fall apart on you, and it does happen. Any jobbing jeweller will tell you of things they've ballsed up on accident, because you don't know the history of other people's jewellery, so you've got to be careful. So what we do now, yeah, so I still haven't drilled out that underbezel, and it's still not in the ring, because you could put that in the ring and then put that on top. No, I make that as one unit, and then that would go in a ring. So to proceed, perhaps not a good idea in silver, but in platinum or gold, I just carefully get it in position, get it all nice and lined up, nice and central, and I just hold it together in tweezers. Hello, focus. Yeah, just hold it together like that. And then perhaps just touch one little prong, whatever you call it, solder on, take it off, make sure you like the position of it. Yeah, and then you can just go around it, soldering each one. It's really, really easy to do. Now I really want to try and solder that in, just holding it in tweezers. It's so much easier just to line it up with my fingers and then just hold it there. Like, I could literally run downstairs holding that, run back upstairs, and it wouldn't have moved. Really secure and very easy to solder in a good position. If you're doing one of these and you think your claws might be a bit too thin and you're making it in silver or even gold and you don't dare do it holding it in tweezers, you just have to position it, just put it down and then just look around it, look directly down on top of it, look at each side, rotate it as you're looking at it, making sure, this is especially important if you've got that little edge, oh god, if you've got that little, if that's slightly bigger than the bottom of that, like I said I like to make mine, yeah, it's more important, it's got to be really central, because if it's more one side than the other, then that little step is really big one side and then non-existent the other side, so you'll be really careful positioning it. So just look around it, get it on there best you can. I would flux it gently, warm it up slowly, do one tiny little bit of solder, like just what we call tack it on, and then let it cool down a bit and then pick it up, look around it, make sure you like the position, and then just go around it, solder the other ones. I'm gonna try and solder it the hard way just for the people who are going to do it this way as well. So I'm just going to do what I feel like doing, and I'll watch myself and then tell you what I'm doing. That's kind of how I operate when I'm doing this channel. Right, so I put a little bit of flux on the underbezel first. Just give it a layer of flux all the way across. There you go. That's it. Now I'll put that on. So the whole thing is definitely fluxed. These tweezers are no good, and they're going rusty. Stainless steel, what? Okay, so just duck down. This is where you benefit from having a high bench and a low chair. Like, check out my make your own workbench video. So I get to look directly across it without really breaking my neck or my back. So carefully do this. Someone commented you can do the lazy Susan, a little spinning, rotating tray on your bench. I don't really like the idea of that, but there are moments like this where it would be useful. Because this vibrates, yeah, sometimes things are set up so delicately, just moving it like that, it kind of vibrates and shakes and things can move about. But anyway, do what you got to do, just look around it, rotate it, understand exactly where it is so you know how to move it. It takes a bit of skill as well, just learning to move things, adjust things gently, but it's all possible with a bit of care. Yeah. Then warm it up a little bit more. Hopefully that flux will stick it down in position very, very gently, and you should be good to go to add a tiny little bit of solder. I like using this, my 2x eyeglass, watchmaker's glass, when you're really lining things up. You get a really good look at stuff, a bit close. Not too close, so you can really appreciate how well lined up things are. This is pretty good. I think it needs to come this way a little bit. And that's all. Hardly anything. Okay, yeah, that has improved it. But then you've got to, if you make any adjustments at all, you've got to check around the whole thing again. Because you can move things in directions you didn't mean to. Okay, right. Go in that position. And there's little moments like that that confirm to me I don't work as well when I'm on camera. I take more care in things when I'm not filming. Right, so I just warmed that up a bit. I am imagining that that is stuck down a tiny bit, but I'm going to let it cool right down and then add a little bit more flux to definitely one that I'm going to try and solder. Alright, I just want to show you the size of the bits of solder I'm cutting out. That's the point of my dart here. Tiny little bits of solder. Got something else to see the size? That's my brush. Just tiny little bits. I definitely recommend trying to put it on with just stuck to the end of your brush, because with picking that up with tweezers and put it on, your tweezers are definitely going to knock it out of position. It's nice when the piece you're sticking something to has a bit of heat in it, because then that bit of solder will just kind of stick to it really easily, but too risky when you've got these two really lightweight pieces just balancing. So you just have to be careful, do it with your brush. So that's on there, and let's just solder it on. I'm hoping that's going to show on screen. I'm always unsure, yeah, because the actual screen I'm looking at on this camera isn't that great picture quality. The video's in really good 4K quality, but the screen I'm looking at, nothing's very that clear. So gentle bit of heat. I'm trying to get more heat on the bottom because that top will get hot really quickly. I need to get a bit more heat on that bottom bezel. It's not easy when it's sat down on a flat bit of charcoal. So I'm blasting my heat almost. Ah, silver, I love you. Oh, there you go, we got it. Haven't touched it, just wanted to show you. Now that is too much solder. But there's 8 points here. You can get away with a really tiny amount of solder, and there's 8 points. So even the smallest amount of solder times 8, that's a really strongly joined piece. So put what you think is not enough solder on more than too much. Okay, I'm gonna show you with a loop. There you go, it's not too bad. It's not as bad as I thought it was, but it's nice if you can probably do it with a little bit less solder than that. And then let me show you the edge that I'm talking about. Because do one solder and then I pick it up when it's cooled down, and then I check it for accuracy in its position. And then can you see, difficult for me to hold these things, but I'm looking at the step that's going over the edge here. So I'm keeping my eye on that little step. Look at that top one. And then I rotate it, and it should be the same distance all the way around. Because if it disappears, you know it's hanging over the other edge more. So I'll just rotate it all the way around. Then do this after your first solder, because if it's wrong, you have an opportunity to change it. If you're lucky, you can just pivot it on the bit where you soldered, but it's unlikely to work. You may have to take it off again. But to save yourself working in that way, just try and line it up correctly and then solder it on. Yeah, and obviously look at it from this direction, and then you can see whether you like its position. So mine's all right. I'm going to put it in the acid, and then I'm going to do the rest. Alrighty, so I've been around it. I just did them all exactly the same as the first one. So I just had them on the edge of my charcoal block, heated it, tried to get the heat sort of, it's almost pointing the heat upside down, yeah, it's almost pointing the heat kind of there. So this was definitely getting hot more than that. Just that heats up so quickly, so spending more time heating that up, and then it's just a bit of a balance, and hopefully you get the solder to flood in. Because if you get that too hot, obviously the solder's just going to jump up onto that. So you've got to be a bit careful. It might take a little bit of experience to get that right. But looking around it, I wish it would be nice if they were the perfect same amount of solder on each one and all done really neatly, but rarely goes like that in the real world. I see solder flooded up there. One of them looks like not quite enough solder. It's not too bad. But looking at it design-wise, I almost wish they were a bit sharper. They're a bit too flat on the bottom, my ones. I don't mind it, but last time I made one, I think it looked better because they were all a bit sharper. But then it's a bit of a balance, because like I said at the start of the video, if you over sharpen them, you end up reducing the height of them, and then you've got one shorter than the rest, and then you say you get to this stage, they might all be touching except one, and then you've got to fill it up with a bit of solder, and then that's risky, because if solder floods up into that groove, you can't really, well, you can't tidy it up nicely, not at this stage with that on there. You could thread a saw blade through, and you can touch it with files, but it's never going to be as good as if you don't flood it with solder in the first place. Also want to mention, in platinum, at this stage it can look really nice. Like if you polished it before, went together, all polished out, even after soldering, still stays polished, so you can see reflections and stuff inside. So you get a really nice looking handmade thing when you work in platinum. Silver doesn't happen, unfortunately. You should definitely look inside as well, make sure you can see solder flooded right to the inside edge of all your little points. But basically that is it. And then solid, that you should have a dot in the middle, either depends what way you did it, most likely in there. See my dot? That dot should be right in the middle, and also that helps as a guide. When it's in the ring, you can use that for your drill to go right down through the center. So there you go, that's how I solder a 8-claw Rex onto its underbezel. Next stage, I would be taking my rubber discs that feature in my videos, my channel quite a lot, nice and sharp, just tidy up all the solder joins. Doesn't take much. If you work with small bits of solder, it's not much work at all. Should look nice and neat. Probably touch around the outside again with that, get that polished. So I've got a bit of solder on it. And yeah, by all means, in platinum, give it a light polish. Then after rubber wheeling, these polishing, little polishing bristle brushes, they work really well. They get in all the little slots, do the black sort of hard one, and then I go for a softer goat's hair, whatever that is, with the green on. I polish that up really nicely in there. Get all the inside polished so the stone looks its best when it's set. Go all around it. Worth polishing, I think, at this stage before we put it in a ring, just because you can do a better job. If that's in a ring with the shoulders going up to it, you can't really polish around the side, so yeah, it's nice if you can polish that first. So there you go. I said I was going to do a underbezel video on this in the future, and here we are, so glad to get that done. Just needs a little bit of work tidying up. I'll go ahead and do that. There's no point in showing you on the video because it was just the point of this video is soldering it on, so we got all that information on there, and I'll go ahead and clean it up so I get a nice photo for the YouTube thumbnail. So yeah, that's it. So cool. Yeah, thanks for watching. If you're new to the channel, click like and subscribe. There's links in the description to become a patron or a Diamond Mountain member. That'd be awesome if you want to take it a step further and really contribute to helping the channel grow. Yeah, that'd be amazing. And you can, there's not necessarily a monthly subscription. It's not any kind of contract. You can come and go. Lots of people do. They just make one contribution and they go, and that's great. I really appreciate that. I'm actually a patron of other channels as well. There's one I did the other day. I just sent a guy $10 because he was teaching like motorcycle handling techniques out here on all these mountain roads, doing a lot of cornering. So it's really good fun and getting the most out of my bike. So just one of his videos taught me loads of stuff. I really appreciated it. So I sent him $10. So yeah, as someone who receives money from patrons, I really know how much gratitude I feel when people send me money, so it's actually more fun for me to send money on to other people as well, because I know how it feels when they get it. Anyway, right, so yeah, there's you don't have to sign up for monthly like payments. You can just make one contribution, whatever you want, or not at all. I respect that. Just watch the videos, whatever's free. It's all useful stuff on there for you as well, but there are more benefits if you become a patron or a member. Cool, right, see you later. I'll go ahead and do this and hopefully see you on the next video. Bye bye.